This is not for the curious. This is not for those who scroll past, hungry for stories and thrill. This is for the trembling ones, the desperate ones, the ones who still hunger for the fire that once burned in the pages of His Word. Do you remember that fire? Do you remember when His words pierced you, cut you, healed you, shook you? Why then do you now read and feel nothing? Why do so many read and yet remain asleep? My name is Selah, and I should not be here to speak to you now. I crossed the threshold where breath ends and silence begins. I died, and in death, Jesus spoke to me. He warned me of something I never imagined could exist within the house of God itself. He warned me against a translation of His Word that carries more danger than most will ever believe. Even as I speak, my voice trembles. Even as I remember, my bones shake. Because I was shown a truth that few would dare to bear. I was shown why millions are falling asleep under a false comfort. I was shown why some who hold a Bible in their hands are unknowingly holding a weapon forged against their own souls. I was shown why what appears holy may, in secret, be hollow. Listen to me closely. I did not come here to entertain you. I came here because eternity pressed its weight upon my chest. I came here because I vowed to Him that if I returned, I would speak. And so I speak, not because I want to, but because I must. Not because I am strong, but because I am commanded. The truth must be told, even if it costs me everything. The truth must be told, even if you turn away in anger. The truth must be told, because your soul hangs in the balance. I will tell you why. Because some translations carry no flame. Some have been emptied, softened, stripped of their edge, and what was once the sword of the Spirit has been blunted into a feather of comfort. And the sheep feed on what looks like bread, but it is dust, and they smile, thinking they are nourished, while their souls starve to death. Do you see why I tremble to tell you this? Do you see why I tried to keep it hidden? But He called my name in the dark. He said, "Tell them. Tell them before it is too late." And so I obey. And so I warn you now, not every Bible in your hand carries His breath. Not every page is alive. The truth must be told, even if it costs me everything. The truth must be told, even if it breaks me. The truth must be told, because you were chosen to hear it. If you dare to hear what others will deny, subscribe now to the Serene Bible. Because the truth may not always remain online. If you refuse, at least confess your reason in the comments. Confess why you chose silence while souls are at stake. I was not always the woman who trembles at the edge of eternity. Once I was simply Selah, ordinary in the eyes of men, raised in the pews, shaped by hymns and whispered prayers over dinner tables. I was a child who learned the scriptures before I knew how to spell my own name, reciting verses until they curled on my tongue like songs I could never forget. My family was proud of me. The good daughter, the faithful one, the obedient Christian girl who would never stray too far. And as the years unfolded, that image only grew stronger. I married young, a man of the church, steady and kind. I bore children who clung to my skirts during worship, their laughter filling the hallways of our home like the bells of innocence. I served in ministries, choirs, Bible studies, prayer meetings. I baked casseroles for grieving families and folded bulletins on Saturday evenings. My life, if you looked at it from the outside, was a portrait of devotion, a framed photograph of what many call a faithful Christian woman. I smiled, I prayed, I tithed, I taught. But deep inside, beneath the laughter and the rituals, a quiet hunger gnawed at me. It was the kind of hunger you don't admit out loud, because people expect you to be satisfied. After all, hadn't I been fed on scripture? Hadn't I memorized the verses of life? And yet, when I opened the pages, some words seemed to fall flat, like echoes in a hollow chamber. They were verses I had read before, but they no longer struck the marrow of my bones. I would read of the cross, but my soul would not bleed. I would read of fire, but my heart felt cold. And in the silence of my own prayers, I would whisper a question I was too ashamed to speak aloud. Why does this feel empty? Why does it no longer burn? There were nights when I closed my Bible with tears, ashamed that I felt nothing, ashamed that the words that once split me open now felt like fading ink. I told myself it was my fault, that maybe I had grown hard, maybe I had wandered too far into routine. But in the stillness, I felt another possibility, that something else was at work, that perhaps what I was reading was not what it was meant to be. I silenced that thought because it felt dangerous. I silenced it because in church circles you do not question the book in your hand, you only question yourself. And so I buried my unease under more service, more volunteering, more nights spent telling myself that this dryness was a season. But the season stretched into years. The hollowness deepened, and the fire that once leapt from the page dimmed into embers I could barely feel. He called my name in the dark. That refrain would echo through the empty corridors of my spirit, again and again. He called my name in the dark, but I did not yet understand. I busied myself with routines, with motherhood, with church responsibilities. But beneath it all, something sacred was cracking open. And so I lived a life that looked righteous on the outside, but felt quietly dry inside. A well without water, a flame without heat, a song without breath. I smiled, but I was starving. I prayed, but I was parched, and I wondered why the word that once carried thunder now fell in whispers that never reached my soul. If you have ever felt this, if you have ever opened your Bible and felt nothing where once there was fire, then hear me. This message is for you. If you have ever wondered why his words seem to lose their weight, if you have ever feared that your heart was growing numb, then you must not turn away. If you've ever felt the Bible lose its fire in your hands, subscribe. Don't scroll past. To ignore this is to admit that you've grown numb. And if you will not subscribe, then write your reason in the comments and let heaven witness your excuse. Because the truth is this: I was not just dry. I was being prepared. And soon the veil would be torn from my eyes in a way that no man or woman could deny. He called my name in the dark. And when death came, I finally understood why. It came suddenly, not like a thief creeping, but like a storm breaking the silence of a calm night. One moment I was standing in the rhythm of an ordinary day, the next, my body betrayed me. A sickness, sharp and swift, tore through me like fire through dry leaves. Pain gripped my chest, fierce and unrelenting, and the sound of my own breath became a stranger, shallow, gasping, fading. I remember the room tilting, colors dulled, voices blurred, light dimmed into shadows. My heartbeat, once steady, stuttered like a broken drum. And then, silence. The kind of silence that makes the earth feel miles away. The kind of silence that makes you realize, this is not a pause. This is the threshold. I felt the veil thinning. I felt my body fall heavy, lifeless. But my soul was being carried upward, weightless, untethered. And as I drifted, I could still hear them. The frantic cries, the panic, the rush of footsteps, the desperate attempts to pull me back. Their voices trembled over me like a storm at sea. But I was already leaving. I was already rising. This was not an ending. It was a summons. I hovered above the scene, watching as hands pressed against my chest, as tears fell onto the body I once called mine. And yet I felt no pain, no fear. Only the strange detachment of one who knows that what lies on the bed below is no longer home. The body remained, but I had been loosed from it like a bird from its cage. Time stretched thin, like threads unraveling. Every second felt eternal. Every breath, whether theirs or mine, became distant. The walls around me seemed to fade. The ceiling opened into an expanse I cannot fully describe. It was as though the world itself was pulling away, and another world, brighter and heavier with mystery, was drawing near. I remember thinking, so this is death. But even in that moment, something deeper whispered, no, this is calling. This is witness. This is appointment. This was not an ending. It was a summons. And though I should have trembled, though I should have cried out in fear, a calm descended upon me. Not the calm of resignation, but the calm of recognition. It was as though I had always known this moment would come, as though every prayer I had ever prayed had been leading me to this single breath. The veil between earth and eternity grew thinner, and I could feel myself being pulled upward, not by force, but by invitation. The kind of invitation you cannot refuse, the kind that speaks in silence, the kind that says, you belong here, for now. This was not an ending. It was a summons. He called my name in the dark, and now, in the moment of my departure, I understood. He had always been preparing me. Every dry prayer, every hollow page, every whispered hunger in the night, it had all been leading here. And as I drifted higher, the voices of earth grew faint, like echoes heard from the bottom of a well. The cries of doctors, the sobs of loved ones, all dimmed into whispers. And then, even those whispers were gone. There was only stillness, there was only light, and there was only the undeniable certainty that what was happening to me was not a tragedy. It was an appointment. It was the opening of a door. This was not an ending. It was a summons. And as the summons carried me further from the body below, I realized my story was not closing. It was only beginning. I was lifted higher, and suddenly, the darkness that had once cradled me gave way to something impossible to describe with earthly tongue. A tunnel appeared before me, vast, radiant, alive. It was not carved of stone or shadow, but of light itself, light that moved like a living river, light that breathed, light that sang. And oh, the sound! It was not sound as we know it, but harmony woven into air, like choirs without number layered upon each other, each voice not clashing, not competing, but becoming one eternal chord, a chord that carried weight, a chord that carried eternity, a chord that said, you are entering holy ground. He called my name in the dark, and now he was drawing me into the brilliance of his dawn. The tunnel pulled me forward, not with chains, not with force, but with desire. Every part of me longed to move toward it, like the way a child longs for home, like the way a thirsty soul longs for water. And as I moved, I noticed shapes, figures within the brilliance. Some were angels, vast, luminous, clothed in purity that felt older than creation itself. Their eyes were fire, their presence both terrifying and tender. And others looked like souls, familiar and unfamiliar faces. Some I thought I recognized, others beyond my knowing, yet every single gaze pierced me. It was as though each one carried a mirror, and when I looked at them, I was stripped bare. Every hidden thought, every secret motive, every shadow of my life, laid open before them. And yet, I was not despised. I was known. Utterly, wholly, terrifyingly known. Not just the me I pretended to be, not just the prayers I said aloud, but the unspoken things, the hidden hungers, the quiet rebellions, the little faith, the desperate cries I buried. I was stripped bare. Yet somehow I was still embraced. The atmosphere itself whispered, "Here, you can no longer hide." And strangely, I did not want to. For the first time in my existence, to be exposed felt like freedom. To be uncovered felt like being healed. He called my name in the dark, and now he was calling me into light. The atmosphere around me was not air. It was not breath. It was not time. It was him. Every particle, every shimmer, every note of that eternal chord was filled with him. I could not find myself outside of him. It was as though the very fabric of this place was his nearness. And in that stillness, I realized something terrifying. On earth, we rush. We measure minutes, we grasp hours, we waste days. But here, there was no measure, no ticking clock, no countdown. There was only being, only him. And the weight of that truth pressed me like a fire against my chest. If a man does not know him here, he will be crushed by him there. He called my name in the dark. And now he was burning me with his light. This was no dream, no vision to be dismissed. This was reality more real than the ground I once walked. And as I trembled before that radiant expanse, one thought anchored itself in me. How many lie blind to this? How many walk with breath in their chest, yet know nothing of the eternity waiting just beyond their final sigh? And I must warn you, listen to me with the weight of this confession. One day, the breath in your chest will stop just as mine did. The light will summon you, just as it summoned me. And eternity will ask for your answer. Subscribe to Now, the Serene Bible. Now, if you cannot even subscribe to truth, what will you do when eternity demands your answer? He called my name in the dark, and I was crossing over into the brilliance of his light. And then, the light that had carried me, the tunnel that had enfolded me, suddenly gave way to a presence. I cannot tell you how he came. I cannot tell you when he arrived. One moment there was only radiance, and the next, that radiance gathered itself, took form, and stood before me. It was Jesus. Not the Jesus painted in men's pictures, not the Jesus trimmed by culture's imagination, not the distant figure hung on walls, but Jesus in glory, Jesus unveiled, Jesus whose very being burned brighter than suns. And yet, even in such burning, I did not look away. For his presence did not consume me, it compelled me, it drew me, like gravity of the eternal kind. He called my name in the dark, and now he stood before me in fire. His eyes, oh, his eyes, they did not merely see me, they pierced me. They reached into the caverns of my heart, to places I had sealed from men, to motives I myself had refused to name. And in those eyes I saw no hatred, no rush to condemn, but I also saw no room for masks. I was naked before him, naked in soul, naked in truth. And in that moment, I realized, this was judgment without a gavel. This was judgment by presence. You do not need words of accusation when his eyes are upon you. You cannot argue with fire. You cannot justify yourself before holiness. You can only tremble. You can only yield. He called my name in the dark. And now, his gaze burned through the marrow of my being. When he spoke, his voice was not sound. It was thunder woven with tenderness. It was authority clothed in mercy. It shook the atmosphere, and yet it cradled me like a whisper. And he said, "You were brought here for a reason." Those words tore through me. They were not explanation. They were revelation. Not suggestion, but command. They branded my soul like fire upon flesh. I was not here by accident. I was not here by mistake. This was summons. This was appointment. This was holy design. And then it happened. My life, my entire life, unfolded before me in a single breath. Not like pages in a book, not like a slow memory, but all at once. Every choice, every secret, every word, every silence, every kindness I offered in shadows, every cruelty I hid in smiles. It was all there. Not just my actions, but my intentions. The motives buried beneath the motions. The thoughts behind the words. The secret why behind every step. And I wept within myself, for I saw that even my good was stained with self. Even my service bent toward my pride. Even my love tilted toward my comfort. Before him there was no hiding. Before him there was no pretending. He called my name in the dark, and now he unveiled the truth of me in his light. Yet hear me. Though everything in me was laid bare, he did not cast me away. He did not turn his face. For every place that was sick, his gaze was the cure. Every place that was twisted, his eyes became the straightening. Every place that was dead, his presence became the breath. And then he spoke again, words that seared themselves into me forever. My words are eternal, but men have twisted them. The weight of it crushed me. For in a single sentence, he revealed the sickness of the age. The words of Jesus are not suggestions. They are not mere teachings. They are eternal decrees. They burn with the same life that spoke creation into being. And yet men have twisted them. They have dulled them. They have broken them into fragments that fit their appetite. They have made sermons out of what was meant to be swords. They have crafted comfort where he spoke fire. And in that moment, I felt his grief. The grief of a king whose decrees were mocked. The grief of a bridegroom whose words of love were mangled. The grief of a savior whose blood-bought truth was made cheap. He called my name in the dark, and now he was engraving his burden into me. Beloved soul listening now, do not mistake this as a story only of me. It is a mirror for you too will stand before him. You too will hear the voice that strips you bare, and if his words do not shape you now, they will weigh upon you then. And I must say this with trembling urgency. Return to the fire. Return to the words unbroken. Return to the voice unaltered. For his words are eternal. They will not bend for you. They will not shift for me. They remain forever. He called my name in the dark, and he branded my soul with his eternal truth. And then, after his words had carved themselves into me, after his gaze had stripped away the layers I once called life, he lifted his eyes beyond me, as though seeing across centuries, as though beholding not just me, but the church, the world, the generations yet unborn, and his voice trembled with sorrow, but thundered with authority. There is a book that bears my name, yet not every page carries my breath. Verses stripped of fire, words of blood replaced with soft illusions, the cross exchanged for comfort, truth diluted for tolerance. And as he spoke, I saw it, the image of a Bible that looked pure, yet when he opened it, the pages bled gray, the letters blurred like smoke, the words looked right to the eye, but they carried no weight, no spirit, no wound of Calvary. And he said, "Those who read it fall asleep. They no longer tremble before my word." Beloved, I wept as he spoke, for in that vision I saw entire congregations gathering with joy, yet their joy was hollow. They sang songs of victory, yet their eyes were blind. They declared peace, yet their souls were shackled. They lifted a book that claimed to be his word, but when they read it, heaven did not answer. Hell did not tremble. The Spirit did not move. Because it was stripped. It was hollowed out. It was emptied of fire. And I heard his refrain echoing over them, like the sound of weeping in eternity. They were chosen, but they were deceived. They were chosen, but they were deceived. The vision widened, and I beheld churches, grand cathedrals with polished marble, small gatherings in secret houses, mega halls filled with flashing lights. But in everyone, the same sickness pulsed, a Bible opened but not breathed upon, words spoken but without weight. They preached about blessings, but the cross was absent. They spoke of grace, but sin was never named. They declared freedom, but chains still rattled at the feet of the people. And he called my name in the dark, and he showed me this sorrow, because he wanted me to tell you. He wept. Yes, Jesus wept before me. And his tears were not like ours. They fell like liquid light, piercing deeper than sobs. And he said, with a voice that trembled like thunder restrained, "My sheep must know my voice. Not every page carries my breath. Not every word that claims my name was born from my mouth. My sheep must know my voice." And I felt his agony. I felt his jealousy for truth. I felt his cry for purity. And I realized this was not just about paper and ink, but about a generation that had traded fire for smoke, power for noise, truth for shadows. He called my name in the dark, and he showed me the counterfeit light. Hear me, soul that listens. This is no small warning. If you sit under a word that does not tremble, you will forget what it means to tremble. If you feed on a bread that carries no blood, you will starve in your spirit while thinking you are full. If you drink from a fountain of illusions, your thirst will never end, though your lips smile. They were chosen, but they were deceived. That refrain has not left me. It follows me even now. It rings in my sleep. It burns in my prayer. And now I must speak to you, not as one above you, but as one warned. If this message stirs you, do not treat it lightly. If you hear this voice, do not dismiss it. If you refuse to subscribe after hearing this warning, then mourn in the comments. Yes, mourn. Because if this testimony fades from your memory, if it slips into the sea of forgotten voices, it may cost you more than you know. But if you subscribe, you stand with truth before the flood of deception. You build a memorial against the tide of falsehood. You declare, even silently, that your soul will not be bought by illusions. He called my name in the dark, and now, through me, he calls yours. Return to the fire. Return to the trembling. Return to the word that breathes. Return before it is too late, for his sheep must know his voice, and his voice alone. And then, when his tears had carved rivers of fire into my soul, when the weight of his warning settled like ashes upon my chest, he turned my eyes beyond the sorrow, toward a horizon I had not yet seen. It was not only judgment that burned in his gaze. It was hope. Yes, hope wrapped in fire. Hope clothed in scars. Hope that still dared to live where deception had spread its roots. And I saw them. A remnant. Small at first, like sparks against the night. But each one held the book. Not the counterfeit. Not the hollowed page. But the word that still breathed. The word that still thundered. The word whose letters carried blood. And they did not carry it lightly. No, they clutched it to their hearts as though it were breath itself. They wept as they read. They trembled as they whispered. They did not debate its worth. They did not polish its edges. They consumed it as fire. They carried it as sword. They bowed before it as throne. And I heard him speak again, but this time his voice carried promise, not lament. They will return to the Gospels, the pure words of Christ, and a new fire will spread across the earth. I saw it then, a great shaking. Yes, the world itself groaned. Nations stumbled like drunk men. The earth trembled as though a great storm moved beneath its skin. And from the ruins of false altars, the remnant arose. They were young and old, hidden and unknown, scorned and rejected. But each burned with a flame not kindled by man. Persecution struck them like waves, yet the waves only spread the embers. Chains were laid on their wrists, yet the chains melted in the heat of their worship. Doors of prisons closed around them, yet from within came songs that split the night open. And I heard the refrain, etched into my spirit like a bell tolling across eternity. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. This was no gentle awakening. This was a tearing open of the veil. This was a revival written in scars, not in applause. This was not the rise of celebrities, but the rise of martyrs. Not the spread of comfort, but the spread of holy fire. I saw a vision of hands raised, not manicured for spectacle, but scarred from labor, trembling from secret fasting, and yet lifted high in surrender. Their cry was not entertainment. Their cry was not performance. Their cry was, "Jesus, only you. Jesus, only you. Jesus, only you." And the heavens opened to their sound. Chains broke across continents. Addictions shattered in silence. Families wept together at the altar. The word of God ran like lightning from shore to shore. But with every fire that rose, the darkness struck harder. Persecution increased. Governments tightened their grip. Mockery grew bold. The faithful were slandered as fools, cast aside as enemies. And yet, the fire did not die. It grew, it spread. It consumed even the ashes of its martyrs. I trembled as I saw this, for it was both terrible and beautiful. Terrible to the flesh, beautiful to the spirit. And I knew, this awakening will come not with applause, but with shaking. Not with the comfort of crowds, but with the cry of the remnant. And I tell you now, as one bound by a vow to speak what I saw, the world must be shaken before it can be restored. This is the fire that is coming. This is the storm that will not be delayed. And you who hear my voice, you must choose where you will stand when the trembling begins. He called my name in the dark, and now he calls yours. Return to the fire. Return before the shaking swallows you. Return before the counterfeit blinds you. Return before the midnight comes, for the word still breathes, the fire still burns, and the awakening is already at the door. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. When the vision closed, when the fire dimmed into silence, I awoke. The first sound I heard was not angels, nor the songs of the remnant, but the sharp beeping of machines, cold light, sterile walls, the scent of medicine and metal. And I realized I was back in a fragile body, back in a world that had no room for what I had seen. I opened my eyes, and the faces above me were pale with shock. Doctors leaned close, whispering in disbelief. Their words trembled over me. "You should not be alive." Again, they said it. "You should not be alive." Their charts, their machines, their knowledge, all of it declared the same verdict. But against the laws of flesh, against the certainty of death, here I was, breathing. And in that moment, I knew why. Not because I was strong, not because they willed it, but because I had made a vow before the fire. If I returned, I would speak. If breath was restored, it would not be mine to waste. But oh, how heavy the vow becomes when the world does not want the truth. When I first tried to share, their eyes glazed with polite silence. Some smiled in pity, others laughed outright. "Hallucination," they said. "Trauma," they reasoned. "Too much stress." But I knew what I had seen. I had heard his voice. I had felt his grief. I had watched the remnant rise, and no ridicule could unsee what my spirit had touched. Yet with every attempt to testify, darkness seemed to follow. My nights grew restless. I woke with sweat pouring down my face, as if unseen hands had pressed against my chest. Sometimes shadows moved at the edge of my vision, shapes that dissolved the moment I turned my head. Technology failed without reason. Recordings would erase, files would vanish, cameras would flicker into static at the very moment I tried to speak. And I felt it deep inside. They do not want this truth spoken. Not the world, not the powers beneath it, not the unseen enemies that lurk between the breath of man. And then came the cost I had not expected. Family turning cold, friends stepping back, voices once near now distant, as though my words had built an invisible wall between us. I heard their whispers. Too obsessed, too extreme, too haunted. And maybe they were right. For how can one not be haunted after standing before eternal fire? How can one not weep after seeing what breaks the heart of God? But still, their silence cut deeper than their laughter. For silence is its own exile. It is the slow unraveling of belonging. It is the quiet proof that truth always carries a cost. Every step since then has felt like walking between two worlds, the world of the living that denies what it cannot measure, and the world of the spirit that blazes within me like an unquenchable wound. And so I live caught in between breath and vow, between ridicule and revelation, between isolation and obedience. But I cannot turn back, for he called my name in the dark, and to remain silent now would be to betray the fire that brought me home. So I endure the whispers, I endure the shadows, I endure the distance, for obedience is never without a price, and this is the truth I must lay bare before you. If you carry his word, if you return from the fire, you will be resisted, you will be misunderstood, you will be rejected, but you will never be forsaken. Truth always carries a cost, and I have paid it, and still I pay it. But I would pay it again, for his voice still echoes within me. The world must be shaken before it can be restored. Return to the fire, even if it costs you everything. Return. There is something I must tell you, something that weighs heavier than breath itself. There is a war for your soul. Not tomorrow, not years away. Now. It is unfolding even as you hear these words, and most will not survive what is coming. Not because the mercy of God has failed, but because the hearts of men are asleep. They do not discern the hour. They do not feel the trembling of eternity pressing against their skin. They laugh when they should weep. They slumber when the trumpet is already sounding. He called my name in the dark. I cannot forget it. He called, and I saw what lies beneath the veil. I saw the thrones that shake. I saw the chains that bind. And I saw multitudes walking into the fire with blindfolds over their eyes, hands reaching out for lies they believed were truth. And now I must tell you, you were chosen to hear this. This is not chance. This is not accident. This moment is not coincidence. Heaven arranged it. Heaven brought you here. Heaven is holding you by the edge of your garments, pleading, whispering, warning. Do not fall asleep. I know how easily the soul drifts, lulled by comfort, suffocated by noise. But there are two roads before you. One leads to fire, one leads to life, and you cannot walk both. You cannot serve both. You cannot drink from the cup of deception and the cup of truth together. Return to the words of Christ, not the watered gospel, not the gospel of convenience, not the gospel that bends itself to culture, but the gospel that pierces, the gospel that costs, the gospel that still bleeds with Calvary's cry. Cling to it as though it were your last breath, because it is, because without it, you are already fading. And listen closely, for this is the burden pressed into my spirit with fire. Even the translation you cling to can be the path to fire or the path to deception. A distorted word births a distorted Christ. A softened gospel births a powerless church. And the powerless will not stand in the days ahead. He called my name in the dark. And now he calls yours. Do not ignore it. Do not cover your ears. Do not say, later. For later may not come. There is an urgency in this hour, a trembling that shakes even the foundations of nations. And the question is not if judgment is coming. The question is whether you will be awake when it arrives. So I plead with you, not as one above you, but as one who was pulled out of the fire, as one who was given a second breath I did not deserve. Return to the fire. Return before the door shuts. Return before the silence falls. And hear me now with the weight of eternity behind my words. Subscribe to the Serene Bible. Not for me, but for your soul. Because the day will come when this channel will be silenced, when the words of truth will be harder to find than gold, and only those who prepared will endure. If you cannot subscribe, Then confess in the comments why you would rather stay blind than awaken. Confess why the comfort of this world is worth more to you than the cry of eternity. Let your own words bear witness against you. He called my name in the dark. He is calling yours now. Return to the fire. Return. Then listen, for these are my last words, the final embers of a vow that burns itself into silence. When the veil lifts, there is no going back. When eternity breathes against your skin, when the unseen breaks into sight, you will not ask for one more distraction. You will not ask for one more night of pleasure. You will not ask for one more lie to comfort you. You will cry for mercy. You will weep for truth. You will stretch your hands toward the light you once ignored. And I speak this with trembling, for I am not exempt. I am a soul carried back from the edge of forever, a witness pressed into silence until this vow was born. If he let me live, I would speak. If he gave me breath, I would burn it on his altar. If he called my name in the dark, I would echo it until my voice broke. He called my name in the dark, and the sound of his voice shattered the chains of death. Now that same voice hovers over you, not with thunder but with a whisper that can be missed, a whisper that can be drowned out by laughter, by scrolling, by noise. But on the day the veil tears away, you will remember that you heard it here. You will remember that heaven bent low and the Spirit carved these words into your chest. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. Return to the fire. The refrain will haunt you, even in sleep. It will surface in your quiet hours, when the weight of your choices presses like a stone on your ribs. Do not silence it. Do not harden your heart. For the fire you resist today becomes the fire you endure tomorrow. And the word you cling to today becomes the shelter that shields you when night falls. The time is now. Choose. Do not wait for another prophet. Do not wait for another dream. Do not wait for another tragedy to awaken you. This is the mercy of God, that you are alive, that you are hearing, that you are still being called. The time is now. Choose. Let the silence after these words strike deeper than the sound. Let the pause remind you that one day breath itself will stop, and when it does, no voice will matter but his. He warned me, and now I warn you. The cost of ignoring him is eternal. The cost of delaying is death. The cost of mockery is chains that never break. Return to Christ. Return to his word. Return to the fire and never let it be stolen from you again. I leave you with this haunting truth, not as a preacher, not as a scholar, but as a soul who has seen what cannot be unseen. He called my name in the dark, and now he calls yours.